America, welcome. It is Erickson here across the United States, the day after a brutal election for Republicans nationwide, although it was the off year, so how much does it actually matter? We'll get to that. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I will take your phone calls as well. We should begin with, obviously, probably the biggest story of the night is Zohran Mamdani winning in New York City. And, well, he began by quoting Eugene Debs, who is actually an actual for-real communist. And then he said this.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Yeah, let's listen to that one more time, just so you really process what you just heard.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
No concern too small for it to care about. No problem too large for it not to solve. That's not good. That should terrify everyone. So let me begin with this. If you're a Republican, your reaction is to try to say, wasn't us, not our fault. I'm seeing the progressive right say, oh, it's the immigrants, those damn immigrants. They vote for their third world, except remember in 2022, those immigrants rejected socialism. So what actually gave in New York City? Well, New York City is a different dynamic. The Democrats, though, for the Republicans, it's there's nothing. It's not our fault. It's just bad night. Immigrants. And for Democrats, it's everything. It's the world. It's the moon. It's the universe. We won everything. Our message wins everywhere. We are dominant and supreme. Let's go hard left. Essentially, as I put it on social media last night, the analysis was if they had talked about my issue more, they would have won. But they spent so much time on the issue I don't like, so they lost. There's a unifying thread through every one of the elections. You know, it was a good night for Republicans in Texas. They had a number of constitutional amendments on the ballot in Texas, and they all won. They were conservative amendments passed by the legislature. They won. The hippies in Austin rejected a tax hike. So you're going to hear a whole lot of stuff from a whole lot of people next year about how Texas is turning blue. But just remember, in the off-year elections, Texas was pretty red. In Georgia, the Democrats now have two statewide deep, hyper-progressive elected officials on the Public Service Commission because Republicans didn't turn out. We'll get to that one here in a bit. In Virginia, Jay Jones won. Barely won, but he won. The Democrats swept through New Jersey, New York, swept through Virginia. Brutal night in Virginia for Republicans. But there's a common thread in the exit polling data. Even in Texas, in California, where Democrats had a good night, there's a common thread. You know what the common thread is? Cost of living. The cost of living. It's the economy, stupid. When you have wave elections, it's always the economy. It's never socialism's on the rise. It's never the immigrants. It's the economy. Right now, as I'm talking to you, the Solicitor General of the United States of America is in the United States Supreme Court getting eaten alive by Clarence Thomas and Ketanji Brown Jackson over tariffs. Do you know coffee prices in this country are up over 20%? We don't grow coffee in this country. We import it, and coffee has gone up 20%. Banana prices are up over 10%. A lot of families buy bananas for their children, and they're 10% higher now than they were a year ago because of the tariffs. Now, some of you will say, Erickson, you're just doing what you accused others of doing, saying it's your issue that cost the Republicans the election if only they hadn't done this one thing. And to a degree, you're right, except the difference is the data's with me and not with you. There's not a mass wave to embrace socialism in this country. What there is in New York City is a progressive base where 70 to 80% of the voters are Democrat or Democratic leaning, and Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed their daughters after killing their grandmothers, and voters in New York weren't going to embrace him. And also in New York, young voters turned out for Zohran Mamdani because they thought he was nice. They thought Republicans are jerks. When you survey Hispanic voters in New York, you know why they voted for Mamdani? Because they're fine with President Trump's deportations, but the nice guy down the street who's not a criminal, why did he get deported? I mean, here's the problem for everyone here is the election turnout was deeply predictable. The Republicans control the White House. Prices have gone up. Inflation is up, and wages are not keeping up with inflation. You're going to get a bad night. That's it. You're going to get a bad night. The upside for Republicans in this election is this. It's the economy, and they have time to fix it. The upside for the Democrats is Donald Trump is radicalizing, and in off-year elections and off-year elections, his voters are low-propensity voters, and they're less inclined to turn out. The high-propensity voters are the upper-income white folks, and they turn out, and they vote Democrat now, and they turned out. It helped in Virginia. There's a government shutdown, so Democratic voters have been sitting on the sidelines out of their government jobs for the last month. The downside for the Democrats is this, and it's actually a bigger downside for Democrats than you may realize. The Democrats risk overplaying their hand now by misinterpreting the results. Now, there was a tell in the election. There was a tell. You know, I had an old boss. We called him the pig farmer. And I didn't know this, but he's apparently a pretty good poker player. And I eventually learned that he was very good at figuring out your tell. You know, people have a tell when they sit around the poker table. Maybe they rub their eyebrow just so, or their face makes a particular expression, or they look a particular way when something goes bad, and the other poker players figure it out. The old boss finally told me mine was, don't go into a room with my cell phone, because when something started getting uncomfortable, I would glance at my cell phone. Here's the tell in the election. The tell in the election is that Barack Obama was on the campaign trail in the last 2 weeks of the election, and Donald Trump was not. Barack Obama could campaign for Democratic candidates. The Republican candidates wanted Donald Trump nowhere near them. That's your tell with the election. You may not like it, or you may do what some people are doing and say, well, it was New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Of course, they hate Donald Trump. And that's true. That is fair. That's very fair. But Donald Trump could have gone down to Georgia. He could have. He didn't. In Georgia, Democrats now have two statewide elected officials for the first time in almost 20 years. Donald Trump couldn't go. Off-year elections tend to be bad for the party in power. That's just the way it is. Virginia was always going to be difficult because Winsome Sears ran a terrible campaign and dragged down other candidates on the ballot. But Donald Trump was also a hurdle there. Democrats are now much more likely to vote in off-year and off-year elections. An off-year election is an election held in an odd-numbered year. An off-year election is an election that is in an even-numbered year when the president's not on the ballot. Off-year and off-year. In an off year, Democrats are way more likely to vote. It used to be Republicans were way more likely to vote, but those Republicans over time became Democrats. Let me read you this little excerpt from John Ellis. Among the many astonishing things about Mr. Trump's political success has been and is his extraordinary good fortune. In his victorious presidential campaigns, he drew two of the weakest opponents imaginable, Clinton and Harris. In his second term as president, he has found himself up against the weakest Democratic Party leadership team in decades. Part of his luck is luck he's made. His command of the MAGA base has silenced virtually all Republican opposition. His ability to leverage his opponent's weaknesses to flummoxed resignation is unmatched. His domination of legacy and social media is both intimidating and unrelenting. And just in time, God or the devil, depending on your point of view, seems to intervene on his behalf. And so it has happened once again. God's gift this time is Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City. So the Wall Street Journal columnist and former editor-in-chief Jerry Baker put it succinctly, quote, "On paper, he's the kind of Democrat that might have been invented in a laboratory of perverted social science by a MAGA Dr. Frankenstein. A socialist, an immigrant, a Muslim, a son of a movie director, and a professor of post-colonialism, holder of a degree in Africana Studies, the 34-year-old whose experience runs the gamut from co-founder of the Bowdoin College chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine to membership in the New York State Assembly for the last 5 years, with stints as a rap producer and tenant organizer. Have I missed anything? Well, his employment experience does include a gig as third assistant director on the 2016 Disney movie Queen of Katwe, whose director, Mira Nair, is Zohran's mom. In case those credentials weren't enough, he has enhanced his status as Tribune of Lost Causes, saying at various times that he wanted to defund the police, globalize the Intifada, open city-run grocery stores, and reinvent an America in which there are no billionaires. There could not be a more perfect foil for Republican consultants to highlight from one end of the United States than the other. Before this day is over, the White House and the GOP more generally will do everything in their power to make last night's election results the Mamdani election. They will dismiss the results from New Jersey, Virginia, and California as standard fare. The party out of power always does well. Each loss was to be expected, et cetera, on background. The Republican consulting class will spin a tale of losing the battle, winning the war. And that may work for a time. The question is whether it's true or a misreading of the current environment. If you have listened to me, friends, on this radio program for months now, much to your angst, hate, and displeasure, I have pointed out that the economy is not doing as well as you think it is. When you take out AI and related industries to AI, the economy grew at 0.1% for the first 6 months of this year. Whether you want to admit tariffs are bad policy or not, and there is a vested interest right now in the Republican Party to not do it, because to admit it would be to admit the president was wrong about something, and God forbid we ever admit Donald Trump was wrong about something. But the truth of the matter is, while you have not felt all of the cost, you felt enough of the cost, and enough voters have felt the cost that they're upset about the tariffs. And to the extent they haven't felt the cost in the tariff, they felt the cost by not getting pay raises. In fact, we're back to a point in this country where inflation is running higher than wage increases, so you're falling further behind again, something Donald Trump said he would fix. In fairness to the President of the United States, the economic problems are not all his fault, but he's the president, so he gets all the blame. But the president has contributed to the problem with tariffs. The president has contributed to the problem with the seesaw effect of, we're going to do tariffs. Now we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. Now they're this rate. Now they're this rate. Now they're this rate. Now they're not. Now they are. Now they aren't. Now they are. Now they aren't. Nobody knows what the hell to do. It's driven up compliance costs and regulatory costs. Even as he's claimed he's deregulated, he has done something to the economy, and it wasn't good. But he hasn't done everything to the economy, but he's going to get all the blame because he's president of the United States, and that's not fair. It's just the way it works. But I can see today what's happening is that Republicans and Democrats alike are really badly misreading the election. Republicans think, it was just a bad night in 3 blue states, no big deal. And Democrats are thinking this was everything. We're on our way to taking back the country. What I find most notable is that today I was told by Democrats democracy is under attack, and doesn't seem that way today. They seem pretty happy. Is democracy still under attack? What's going on? I'm lost on their talking point now. Seems like it was just another American election, and guess what? There will be another one a year from now.